Hello and welcome to Shop Talk with Dan the Man. In today's video we're going to talk about this. This is Ridgid's 18V Cordless Trimmer, and this is my 1-year review, the pros, the cons. I'm also going to show you how to swap out your twine on this machine. So stay tuned to find out more. Hello, if you're new to this channel, my name is Dan Shannon. I enjoy woodworking as a hobby and being out in the shop. On this channel, dive deep into my shop as we explore tools and tool reviews, as well as chatting about everything related to woodworking. If this grabs you by the tool belt, please subscribe to my channel if you want more videos like this. Hello and welcome to Shop Talk with Dan the Man. Today's video, we're going to talk about this. This is Ridgid's 18V Cordless Trimmer, and this is model number R01201VNM. And this is Ridgid's Cordless 18V trimmer. So any one of you that does lawn care knows that a lot of times when you're done cutting your grass, you need something to trim up the edging around your property to make it look nice. And during this video, we're going to dive into the pros and cons that I had during this year of ownership with this trimmer. I'm going to dive into how to swap out the different type of thread or twine for this machine. This head is very easy to change out if you have new trimmer twine. So yeah, we're going to dive into that. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're returning, thanks for coming back. So without further ado, let's jump into the pros and cons after a full year of ownership. Pros and cons. Okay, so after owning this cordless trimmer for pretty well a year, not quite, what are the pros and cons of owning this machine? Well, at first I thought it was a con, the battery life. Ridgid says you get about 35 minutes with a 4 amp hour battery, and you know, at first I was like, well, that's a decent amount of time, and it is 35 minutes on a battery. But as you're out on cutting and you're out with your music on, or maybe you have a set of headphones on, you're just kind of singing to yourself or walking around your property, 35 minutes goes by pretty quick when you're out on the job. And I just found that to be quite quick with this machine. Now, is it a very bad con? No. I mean, you can buy a 6 amp hour, even up to a 12 amp hour. So you can give yourself that extra bump in time by getting a bigger battery. So, you know, the con with the 4 hour is just less time, 2 amp hour, even less. So performance wise, you know, I guess you have to weigh that. I don't mind coming in and grabbing another battery pack after 35 minutes. Some people might, so that might be a, you know, a down advantage for them. But for me, I don't mind coming into my shop. It's good to grab a glass of water or have a bottle of water, so get hydrated again. So during that time, I reapply sunscreen. So just come in your shop and grab another 4 hour battery pack, or you know, if you have the money, or if you have a 6 amp hour up to 12 kicking around your shop, you can drastically bump your time in the usage. So that was a con at first, but I kind of, as I started cutting, performance wise, you know, let's jump into that because we were talking about the batteries and the longevity. So we'll jump into the performance. And hands down, I would say for the average homeowner, this will cut pretty much anything. I haven't run into any issues. I had some tall grass. I'll show you that in the video where I started from the top. You always want to cut from the top down. So you start with the top and then you kind of work your way down to the base. Never go at the base or else your head will get all wound up with tall grass and it'll just be a mess. So you always want to start from the top and then work your way down with tall grass. And this thing performed amazing. And like I said, with the review, you can watch that. I'll send a video link just above me right here. You can click on that for the review. But this has 2 speeds to it, the speed 1 and speed 2. And a lot of times speed 1 is more than ample, and that's the pro for this machine. I find Ridgid did a great job with their performance. For the speed setting, very rarely do I put it in 2. Like I said, with the taller grass, sometimes you have to amp it up. And then you get the more RPMs for the motor. But yeah, 1, 98% of the time I have it on that. Not to mention, the faster the machine, of course, the more wear the battery will have. So you got to kind of weigh that as well, performance versus battery runtime. And yeah, so that would be one of the pros I can think of. The con that I ran into, now I did over time figure out a way around it to make it better, but I noticed weight wise and balance wise it was slightly heavy. I did notice a couple comments on my last video, the review, that it was, if you're like 5'2" or down, it was very heavy and it was hard to manage. And you can get straps on Amazon or online that it's basically a harness system, and then it kind of clips on. You can clip it on here and clip it on here, and it will toggle the weight over your back and your shoulders versus your arms. So if you really felt this was not manageable, you can buy that harness system. But for me, it was really just getting used to where I needed the handle to have that balance well. So there is an adjustment. You can undo this butterfly bolt and move that ahead, remove that back. So that was really the con at first, was getting that right angle when I was using this whippersnipper or trimmer, if you will. I always call it whippersnipper, but trimmer. And yeah, so just getting that proper balancing might take you a little bit, might take you a week or so to get used to how heavy this arm is versus this arm and kind of balance that. So like I said, you just loosen this and this will slide. So at first, con, but then once you got that figured out, kind of went away. I don't really notice that much now that I have that figured out. But like I said, get a harness if you really find it's unmanageable. The other thing I found, not really con per se, but I noticed the head was a little sensitive when you bumped it on the ground. It would, this here would shoot out a fair bit. So I don't know, maybe I was around rocks quite a bit and this would get tapped more often, but I noticed this would release this. It was a little bit sensitive, which isn't a bad thing, I guess. Like if you run out of twine, it's good to always have that self-feeding. But I did find it was a little sensitive for my taste. So I would say that was a bit of a con. And I don't mean like you tap it and it like flew out. I just mean like, you could hear it unspool every so often. And for me, I'd rather tip the head up and then unwind it myself. That way I can keep kind of a judge on how much twine I'm using, and also I'm not wasting any, because sometimes when it pushes the twine out, you might still be good to the cutter that's on the guard here. So if you notice the cutter, that's a pretty decent length, and some people will take the guard completely off. So a lot of landscapers will pull this guard off. So when they're doing edging, they can see, because if you're cutting and edging, obviously your visual, you won't be able to see your cut line because the guard's there. So you can pull that off. They recommend to keep it on for safety. So it's up to you, I guess. But yeah, the feeding is where I was going. I didn't care for, you know, kind of how sensitive that was. But, you know, maybe it's just the way the system's built, and that's just how it works. But all in all, you know, I haven't taken this apart, put on different attachments yet. I know if you're doing edging and you want it to angle, you can snap this out and twist the head this way by keeping your handle straight by just unsnapping and turning the shaft and snapping it back in. So I haven't done that. I just turn the actual unit. You know, for me it's no bother, but you can do that on this machine. So that would be a pro if you're doing a lot of edging. So you do all your cutting first, your standard cutting, and then gardens and flower gardens and close to the house, driveways might be good. And when you're done, then you can switch it to the side and then go around and redo everything. So whatever your preference is. Is there any other cons I can think of with this machine? No, I don't think so. I think at the end of the day, performs really well. Haven't had any issues with it. I do like the trigger, that there's a safety there. You have to push that in every time that you want to pull the trigger in, just so it doesn't turn on you. So I do like that safety, so that is a positive. And if you want a full review, like I say, you know, I'll put a link in and you can watch that. But this is kind of the pros and cons, and then I wanted to do a spooling demonstration, how to re-spool the bottom unit. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the pros and cons of this unit. So let's jump into how to spool this unit after your twine runs out. So let's jump into that now, how to re-spool. Okay, so I have my trimmer here. I have the end of the trimmer. Let's turn this more of an angle so you can see a little bit better. This is some cheap twine I had from a previous trimmer. I actually ran out of the original that came with it, the orange stuff. So you just want to pull out the leftover. And you're going to notice on your machine there's a lock and unlock button. So more or less you're in the lock position. In order to do the unlock position, you're going to want to push in and twist it, but we're not going to do that. There is a way to pull this whole unit apart and manually feed the twine through. But what you're going to want to do, this is a very fast and efficient way to spool this. And at first I didn't know. I took it apart and then I fed it through the holes on the sides, and it was just kind of complicated. It was kind of the old way to do it. But the new way with this new spool system is you can actually just get your twine prepared. And what Ridgid recommends is you take your twine, and this twine you can go on and do different reviews of different quality, different brands, and I'm trying this out. I haven't had this before. This is Husqvarna's Titanium Force. So this is a very strong line. I watched a review on the usage of this line and other brands, and for me and what I'm doing around the yard, this will work very well. So what you want to do is you want to get a length, and in the owner's manual for this, it will tell you the exact length to do to spool this entire unit. Now for me, just for demonstrations, I'm just going to take off a couple of arm lengths, and when it runs out you just refeed it. So it doesn't really matter if it's like a lot on your spool, but that's preference again. So I'm just going to do a few arm lengths of this. So I'm not measuring kind of getting a fair bit. And then use your cutters and just cut it off. And then you can set that aside, set your cutters aside. And what you want to do is you want to take your overall length and you got to divide this in half. So you just take the two ends together and then you have your full length. So that would be the center of your line. So the purpose of having it half done is when you feed it through, you want to make sure as the trimmer is releasing the string, it's equal on both sides. So you have the same cut. So that works two ways. A, you have the same length of twine on either side, and B, it's a good balance on the inside. It has the right even amounts on either side, which shouldn't affect it too much, but in theory, you know, if you have the same amount of material coming out on both sides, it would fare better. So what you want to do is, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this, but if you look through one of the sides, the holes, you'll notice you can see right through the unit. Now, if that's not the case, you won't be able to slide this all the way through the unit. So what you want to do is push in on this bottom. Now there is a tool, it's a winder tool that came with it. It's packed away somewhere right now, so I'm not really sure where it is. But what you want to do is push this in and keep turning it until you have that lined up where you can see through the entire unit. Okay, so once you get that, you literally just grab your twine that you cut and you feed it through, and it should come out the other side just like that. And what you want to do now is make sure you have the same length. So that's what I was referring to before. So obviously right now it's not centered. There's too much on one side versus the other. So you just grab both pieces and just pull it through until they're the same length on either side. So as you can see there, it's the same length of twine on either side of the spool. And then the rest is very easy. You can take your winder, so you just leave the extra material down, and you can take your winder and actually crank it, but since I don't have a winder, it'll take me a little bit longer to do the same process. But you basically just wind it into the spool itself. And then I usually just give it a little bit of a tug just to make sure it's planted nice. And you can check with your cutter, and that's it. That's as simple as it gets. So instead of pulling this whole thing off, which I used to do years ago, you'd pull this whole thing off, there's a spring in there, there's a cartridge, it all falls apart. Then you got to figure out, oh man, how do I thread it and do everything? Well, in this case, you just line it up so you can see daylight, slide the whole thing through, make sure it's centered, twine it, and then you're all set. So that's a very easy way to install the twine on this this trimmer. And I'm sure there's other models, Husqvarna, different ones have a similar head attachment on their unit. So if this one didn't come with it, which Ridgid does supply, which I'm actually really grateful for, because this is super easy, very quick, very good time. So I will cut with this twine, this Husqvarna, and see how it makes out. Had very good reviews online, so I'm just gonna see how it handles over time with bricks and stones, because I have that around my property. So let's jump into some final thoughts. Okay, so the final thoughts on this trimmer after owning it for about a year is the pros definitely outweigh the cons as far as the usage and power and overall battery life and handling. I would recommend this for any homeowner, business. You might run into some battery issues as far as owning multiple batteries to cut different properties. But if you have smaller properties, you know, whether it's your home or friends or grandparent, this trimmer hands down is great for those types of tasks. I have almost an acre of land and this trimmer keeps up no problem. I go through one battery and sometimes I creep into a second one depending on A, grass height, and B, you know, how much I have to do during my cutting. So it all varies. There's many variables to your cutting needs and you know, time that you might need for your battery to last. But I would say hands down, I would recommend this as a great product. And like I said, the only con for some people might be the weight, but if you figure out the handle adjustment, like I mentioned earlier on the video, that will balance out with your two arms to stabilize. Or you could just get that harness, you know, to carry that weight through your shoulders and your back. So there is some options out there to suit your needs. And when I was doing the spooling, that's another amazing pro for this. Just slide the material right through. Once the holes line up, make sure it's even on both sides and just spool it. So super fast, super convenient. No more pulling the thing apart and having the spring fly around. Just great overall. So I'm very pleased with this. I'll keep this until the motor burns up, and even if it does over time, Ridgid has their LSA on this product, so I registered it and I can bring this tool in. And not to mention, for all your shop tools, whether you have planers, sliding miter saws, whatever it is that's Ridgid brand, make sure you register. You have 90 days to register those tools to have that full LSA warranty. I can't speak highly enough of Ridgid's warranty for their tools. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up this product and the year-ish review and the spooling. Hopefully that helped you out. Please give me a thumbs up, a like, and if you're not already, please click that subscribe button to be part of the Shop Talk family. We'd love to have you on board. And as always, have yourself a great day, and I will see you in the next video.